Welcome into Inside the League. I am your host, Joshua Perry, former Ohio State and NFL linebacker, and joining me is my co-host, Michael Felder. Played defensive back at UNC, covers college football for Stadium and the NFL Draft for Bleacher Report. Felder, I wanted to talk about this real quick before we get going, but you've got a hobby that gets me excited. You're a chef, a home cook. So explain to me what went on last night, what you got cooking for today.
Yeah, I'm a home cook. I won't go chef credentials because those guys they go to school for that stuff. But what I am going to say, like, we made pizza last night. Every Wednesday we do pizza night. Homemade crust, homemade sauce. We throw the mozz on there. We get it on the pizza steel. I will say pizza steel over pizza stone all day. But yeah, I love cooking. Tonight we're going to have a plum barbecue sauce chicken taco with a little yogurt with sriracha. Bang, bang, bang. We're ready to rock and roll, my man.
It just sounds so good. Gets my mouth watering. It's right around lunchtime, so this is perfect for me. And I'm excited to hear about it. Every day I'm like, Felder, what went on? What are we cooking? So glad we got that out the way. But we have an exciting day today here on Inside the League because we are 2 weeks away from the first day of the NFL draft. And so it feels like it's about time for us to do a mock draft. And the way that we're going to do it today is we're really going to take you inside of the war room. We're going to do our deliberations right here, go through the top five, and give you some insight into what the conversations may sound like for teams on draft day, because there's a lot of discussion. They're doing it right now. But when it gets time to pick up the phone and call the prospect, there's a lot of discussion that goes on behind the scenes. So I'm excited to do this, but let's get started with it. We got the Carolina Panthers on the clock. Felder, I'll let you open up the discussions.
Look, I'm here. I'm in Charlotte, right? And, like, here's the thing. You know what? I know who you have number one at quarterback, so I'm going to go the other way. Hey, he's too small. He's too small. We can't protect him. He's too small. What are we going to do? We can't protect him. He's too small. He doesn't have a big enough arm. We have to go C.J. Stroud. And I'll say this as, like, let's say I'm Frank Reich. I'm Frank Reich, or I'm the offensive coordinator. Bryce Young's too small. We got to go C.J. Stroud.
I don't think he's too small. I think he's got the mobility. This is a league where you can protect quarterbacks. We know that. It's also a guy who's got great feel for the game. He understands the windows that he's going to be throwing into. I'm not trying to hear any of the too small stuff. We got great strength and conditioning here. We can make sure he keeps his weight up throughout the season. The thing that I'm looking at is this guy's a competitor. We know that he goes out there to compete to win. And C.J. Stroud won a lot of games, but the demeanor didn't really get it across for me. And if I'm looking at a guy who's got to walk in right now into our locker room and he's got to be the alpha, it's Bryce Young. He is cut from a different cloth. We got to go with the guy.
I think he's a heck of a football player. Like, the big thing for me when I watch him, like, realistically, if we're being real, like, I love Bryce Young. Hang on a second, guys. I had a little bit of technical difficulties, and I am in real time. I am adjusting this to make it work and make it fit, and that's how it's working. How are we sounding now? You sound good to you?
You're good to go.
There we go. So, listen. I'm playing devil's advocate about Stroud, but, man, I think Bryce Young, you know what? I'm going with you on Bryce Young. He's got to be the number one overall pick. I would love to see him come to my city. I would love to see this guy play for the Carolina Panthers. He is someone who, for me, I just think he's super talented. But in that room, there are going to be guys who say he doesn't fit the bill. He's not big enough. Doesn't have a strong enough arm. And that's the part where the discrepancy is going to come from with respect to those guys that are in that war room, so to speak.
Right, and I think that a lot of the guys are going to point to the track record, too, of Frank Reich and the prototype of quarterback that he's had. It's always been a bigger quarterback. You're looking at the guys that are 6'4", 6'5", kind of the prototypical size, and so I can understand that. And quite frankly, I don't think that they can go wrong here with either one of these prospects. I like them both a ton. But there is going to be that conversation, and I wish we did have a window into what they would be saying. But now we've got the Houston Texans on the clock. Let's say we took Bryce Young off of the board. He's going number one overall. Where do these discussions begin? Because we are hearing the chatter right now for Houston. If Bryce Young's not there, they're not selecting a quarterback.
So this is Stroud versus trade. Stroud versus trade, and that's, to me, man, if you're going to pass on C.J. Stroud, I think you will regret it.
Yes.
And listen, you're in Ohio State. I'm going to kick it back to you, man. Like, obviously, like, I'm here. I think you go Stroud. You got to go Stroud. But, man, like, I'll tell you what, you give me an argument against taking Stroud. Like, what are you going to get if you trade down?
And this is my thing about the arguments against C.J. Stroud. What you would say is his win-loss record in the big games wasn't there. Lost to Oregon, lost to Michigan twice. You lost to Georgia in the CFP. And I know some people take that seriously. Is this a guy that can get you over the hump? I mentioned the demeanor, and there were some clips where he would cut away to the sidelines while he was the defense was on the field. Didn't necessarily look inspiring, but I also hear the stories from players that he was a really good leader. So there's something to combat that there. I think there has to be a voice of reason in the room for the Texans if Bryce Young is the first overall player taken. That C.J. Stroud is a guy that you can put into your franchise and he can change things around, because otherwise you're going to be non-competitive for another year and you're going to be waiting around to see if one of these other quarterbacks can come save you. The guy's probably sitting right there, and I think somebody should be urging them to take him.
Yeah, listen, you know what? I'm in the room with you. We're in the war room for the Texans. Guys, we got to take C.J. Stroud. We have to take C.J. Stroud. He's coming off the board. So Stroud at 2. He has to go at 2. We don't have a dance partner, and we have so many things that we need to fix.
Yes.
Let's start with the quarterback.
Get the biggest one out of the way. It makes perfect sense. All right, now we got the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. This one, to me, is intriguing. I want to see where you're going to go with this, because I think I have an idea, but I've got some pushback for you if you're going where I think you're going.
And so that we've heard talk about them wanting to trade out of that spot. And honestly, unless the Colts are going to trade with us, and listen, it's the Colts. Okay, what are you going to give us? Oh, you're going to give us Quentin Nelson? And we also get just to move down one slot? Sounds good. Cool. But if it's not something like that, like an epic move like that where you get to stay in that top 4, it's not worth it for me.
I'm there with you. It wouldn't be worth it. The guy that I'm looking at here is a player that I know you're pretty high on. It's Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. And the reason I'm going here is because we like to get to comp season when we're talking about the draft. And we know that they're looking at defensive line. Who's the guy that just walked out of that facility? J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt, 6'6", 280 pounds. You got Wilson here, who's 6'6", 270 pounds. You can play him out there on the edge, and he is going to tear it up. But he's a guy that you can kick down inside and probably get a better matchup on a guard in a pass rush situation where you know that you can win. That, to me, sounds intriguing, because we can build a similar plan. This is not me saying that I think this guy is going to be J.J. Watt. But what I'm saying is you can build a similar plan defensively around Wilson if you draft him right here in this spot.
Oh, man. Come on, baby. Will Anderson. Let's go. Come on. I think Will Anderson's the best. Listen, I'm the defensive line coach. I'm the area scout. I'm screaming. Will Anderson's the best player in the draft. Will Anderson's the best player in the draft. Why would we pass on Will Anderson?
I mean, listen, we're trying to get a guy who we know is going to fit right in day one. We're not going to have to change a lot. The rest of our defense isn't going to have to adapt. And I know Will Anderson, you trot him out there, and he's going to be a great player. But the versatility, man, the ability to just kick him down there so we can get the matchups that we like, that's what's standing out to me right now.
I love it. Then why don't we pick Jalen Carter?
Well, now Jalen Carter, I'm not exactly sure. We've done our research, and can we bring him into our locker room right now is the question. We're dealing with a quarterback who wants to play Call of Duty rather than getting his book. I don't know if we can bring another guy that we're going to have to babysit as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You know what? Hey, let's watch it all play out. I think Will Anderson comes off the board here, but let's go Tyree Wilson. Let's go Tyree Wilson here as the number 3 pick to the Cardinals, assuming they don't trade. I still think it should be Will Anderson, but we're going to give it to Tyree Wilson coming out of Texas Tech. And I do agree with you. I think Tyree is a guy that can play from almost a 3 all the way to a 5. So let's get to the Colts. Colts here. We know they need a quarterback.
No,
JP,
I don't disagree on the fact that Will Anderson would be a knockout pick here. But let's get on to the Colts. They're on the clock right now. We know that they're looking at quarterbacks. This is where we get into that dicey area because the 2 best guys are off the board right now. What quarterback are we looking at?
Anthony Richardson is who we're looking at. And then I guess we got to throw Will Levis on the board. So to me, the answer is Anthony Richardson. This is a guy that obviously super talented, although I will say this, I went back and I was watching the game against Georgia, and man, the inaccuracies are something that you have to clean up in a considerable amount. So this is going to be really interesting, but you have to pick a quarterback. Like, you're going to lose your fan base if you don't get a quarterback that they can at least rally around for a few years.
All right, so this is where I'm going. I'm the GM. I'm Chris Ballard right now. I'm saying we have had a bad run of quarterbacks as of late. I know that we have a new head coach. I'm the next guy that's going to be out the door if we don't get this thing right. And I look at Anthony Richardson and I say, boy, that's a gamble. That's a gamble because if we can't coach this guy the way that we believe we need to, we're going to be in a world of trouble. I'm looking at a guy like Hendon Hooker. Sure, he's 25 years old. That means he's mature. Sure, he's coming off of injury, but these guys recover from ACLs as well as anybody in the history has where we're at in modern medicine. And I'm looking at a guy who put together a winner at Tennessee. He was explosive with his arm. He's got some good movement skill to him as well. He made some throws this past year that were absolutely ridiculous. Not as much of a project. Are we going to maybe get the upside? No. But do I know I'm going to have some safety because we didn't completely screw this up? Yes. And so I might be pounding the table for Hendon Hooker right now.
I dig that. And I love Hooker. I think he's going to be I do think he is a first-round quarterback. I would pick him over Levis. I don't know if I pick him over Richardson. But you know what? Hooker at 4 feels wild. Like, that feels like you could slide down a little bit and get him. But let's go ahead and slot Hooker in there. It's Richardson versus Hooker in our discussion. I think it's interesting. Let's go to the Seahawks because for the Seahawks, I had them taking Tyree Wilson, but he's off the board.
Yep. And this is
Will Anderson is still on our board.
This is Will Anderson. This is not a discussion. We don't even have to really discuss this. Will Anderson sitting there at 5? Oh, my goodness. We're snapping him up right now. Could we look at a Jalen Carter right now? I think we could, but we said that Will Anderson is the best player available. He fills a need for us. We know that he can be an instant impact on our team. Oh, my goodness. We're taking him right now.
Yeah, you have. If he's there at this spot, other people have made terrible decisions, I think. But at the end of the day, he's someone who he has the ability. And we've talked about it. We've shown the footage of it. This is a guy that can stone and hold the edge. He can hold the edge, but he's also got the ability to. He's got the ability to knife inside, make himself small. He's got that body, like that body that he has is crazy. Like, it's yoked up top, wasp on the bottom. Like, and everybody. Listen. Yellow Jackets, Wasp, they don't play around. Those guys sting, and they sting a lot of times. They're coming for your head. So I really love if they could get Will Anderson, that's a huge one for me. But let's revamp. If Will Anderson was off the board, are you going Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter?
I'm going Tyree Wilson here, and it's for all the other reasons that I said. I love the versatility out of the guy. I love his ability to pass rush. I love the power that he plays with. Those things all stand out to me. And this is not a knock on Jalen Carter because I think that he is a top 5 type of talent. And what he does when he is like on his game, not tired, is ridiculous. You can't teach it. But Wilson, to me, seems like the guy that I would want to snap up because I just know that he could be a difference maker right now.
Yeah, I love both of them. Obviously, Jalen Carter, we got to deal with some off-the-field stuff. We got to make sure we're bringing him into this. But Tyree Wilson, if he's there for the Seahawks, I think he's a perfect edge rusher for them.
I agree with that. Now, we got to take a quick break right here. When we come back, we're talking tight ends. It's going to be a fun day here. We got some big guys who can run and catch the football, and we'll break them all down for you. This is Inside the League. right here on Stadium. I am Joshua Perry. That is my guy, Michael Felder. And right now we're going to get into the tight ends. And this is one of my favorite position groups because of the versatility that we see in the NFL. And these creative offensive minds really find ways to get these guys open. They're so hard to defend. So when you're looking at your top five, who's on the list?
Before we get into the top five, I do want to ask you this. Linebacker, right? They come out in 12 personnel. You see the big card come up from the sideline, but then they go empty. What does that do to you?
Yeah, it's trouble. I'm trying to find the slowest guy on the field, and I want to guard him, right? Because it is a problem, and this is what teams have been doing as of late in the NFL. I say it all the time. I played against Travis Kelce. He's the best player I ever played against, and it's for that very reason is we didn't have a way to cover him. We tried to put a safety on him. He would dog the safety. You tried to put a linebacker on him. He'd run right by him. There's not a way to defend some of these guys, and we got a good crop of kids right here who are going to be the next generation of these tight ends.
Yeah, so let's start the top five here. I'm going to start with Michael Mayer. Didn't have the combine that he wanted to have, so we'll talk about that. Darnell Washington at number 2. I know he's a project. I know he's got a lot of room to grow, but I love him. Dalton Kincaid, for me, feels like a surefire winner. Sam Laporta, I know you love. And I threw Cameron Letu in there ahead of some of these other guys because I think Letu played in an offense that's going to really make him successful.
All right, so let's start with Mayer here, and he's a guy that I really like for the way that he was used at Notre Dame. Use him in line, they put him in the slot, they even put him out wide. That type of versatility certainly translates. I think that he is also one of those targets where you get him into traffic and you know he's going to make a catch. My biggest thing with him, I saw way too many body catches on tape. I saw him let the ball get to his body.
Explain body catch.
So you let the ball get into your body instead of extending your hands and plucking it out of the air. And based off of what he ran at the combine, he's going to be a guy who needs to get outside of his frame a little bit because the coverage might be a little bit more sticky. But he was phenomenal, and everybody knew he was going to be the biggest weapon on that offense, and he still made plays at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is everybody knew he was going to get the ball, and then he still got the ball, which was really cool. Darnell Washington, he doesn't match any of the production of most of the guys on this list, but when you're the size of LeBron James, come on, man. You talked about a nightmare to cover. This guy has got to be, this is Freddy Krueger right here. He is 6'7". He can jump out of the gym. He made Henry To'oTo'o, who we talked about from the linebacker position, he made him look like a little boy in that game. So what do you got on him?
I mean, he's got that highlight against Oregon where he's hurdling guys. Like, it was ridiculous. And I covered the Peach Bowl that he just played in, and I did a breakdown on him. And he's a tackle with elite athleticism. He plays tight end, and he catches the ball outside of his body, outside of his frame. He is a guy who runs extremely well for how big he is. He's a guy who understands how to take on contact and drop his center of mass being that big. I like a lot of things that are with his game. He certainly is going to be a project, but a guy that I would want on my team. Let's get to Dalton Kincaid. He's a player, to me, where I saw some elite wide receiver type skills. His ability to catch in traffic, to go up and get the ball, the route running, it was all there. He's a gritty guy. I like the way he plays the game.
I love how shifty he is. Like, this isn't a catch and fall tight end. And that's one of the big things for me. Like, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of tight ends that they are first down machines, but they catch the ball at the sticks and get the first down and then they fall. Dalton Kincaid is like, no. Not me, dog. I'm going. So I love that about him. I'm going to kick it back to you. Give me your talk. Talk that talk on Sam Laporta.
Sam Laporta was in a similar situation to Mayer in the fact that everybody knew exactly who was getting the ball for Iowa. They had 0 wide receivers. And so when you're that guy and you're getting all the attention, the ability for him to run routes, and I'm talking about 7 cuts, I'm talking about great cuts out of whip routes where, he's coming in and then he's bursting out. Did a great job with that. Again, the versatility, they put him in multiple spots. I don't love him yet as a blocker. I think he can grow into that. But as a guy who's going to catch a high volume of footballs, this is the guy that you want.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned blocker because Cameron Letu, for me, one of the better blockers out of this group. He is someone who, that's what they asked him to do. For the first half of his career at Alabama, they were like, hey, man, we're going to throw it to, Billingsley, who ended up transferring to Texas. You're going to be the blocking guy. And he made it work. And then he finally kind of grew up into the spotlight. and being able to catch the football. He had a couple of crucial drops. He's a guy that obviously I think he's got to work on getting his head around.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the big key for me is we know that he can block. We know that he can run routes. The key for him is going to be making sure it's not catching, it's getting his head around. And those are two completely different things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the drops because it's something that pops off the tape. But as I looked at him, too, the explosive plays are something that you can't deny. I think he averaged like 14 yards a catch at Alabama. Like, this is ridiculous stuff. And he was a guy who was a blocker, but he's also shown that he is a guy who can play that wide receiver mold of tight end that's really popular in the NFL right now. I know he's lower on a lot of people's boards, but I'm glad that you brought him up because he is a great player. We got to take one final break right here on Inside the League, but when we get back, we're going to go through our sneaky good prospects, a guy that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, but somebody that we love. Make sure you stick around for that. This is Inside the League. Michael Felder. I am Joshua Perry, and we got some big news coming out of the NFL. Josh Harris, former 76ers owner, has reached an agreement to purchase the Washington Commanders from Dan Snyder. Now, we all knew that this sale was going to be coming, and one of the questions that I had was, why wasn't this team really in the quarterback market? It feels like they need to get a franchise guy, and maybe some of these changes kind of give us some insight to their draft plans, but with the sale coming, how do you think this impacts the draft overall?
I mean, people are going to be excited to play in Washington again. I'm not trying to make light of the situation. Like, this is a huge moment where the team's going to change hands, but nobody wants to play for Dan Snyder. Like, it's not as bad as the Browns used to be, but it's not that bad. But also, nobody wants to play for that guy, and that's just the reality. And so, it's one of those things where, and the fans don't like him either. It's one of those things where everyone hates you. Maybe it's time for you to get out of the business. So he's going to listen. He's not going to be hurting for money when he walks away. So this is going to be a really interesting situation, especially I'm from North Carolina. And what folks don't know is North Carolina is a Washington football team, Commanders town or state because we didn't get the Panthers till 96. So everybody that's over 40 was already rooting for those guys. Like, they remember those guys. So let's go. Like, what do you, like, that's it, man.
Just one real quick story. I did have a tryout in Washington. They still had an AstroTurf field outside, so that's how bad that organization was, and now they're going to see brighter days. We got to get to our sneaky good guys. I'm going to go first. I'm going Payne Durham, big tight end out of Purdue. Now, this guy didn't run well at the combine.
Purdue.
But I do. They had some guys. But he plays faster than what he ran. He's a dude that can handle traffic. He's great on the catch and run. He runs right through contact. He's really gritty, kind of got a screw loose. I like those guys. Who do you have?
I got Braden Willis. Braden Willis, for me, outside obviously of Marvin Mims, I thought he was one of the best weapons Oklahoma had. And this is a guy that we saw him block in line, we saw him block off the ball, and he's someone for me. If you get him in the middle rounds, you're gonna be really happy. We could also throw in. I'm gonna go quick. Will Mallory from Miami, Davis Allen from Clemson, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. Like, there's a lot of guys that you can find in the middle of this draft. They're gonna be good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so intriguing breaking these guys down. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do it, but that'll do it for us today. This is Inside the League. You can catch us tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on Stadium. We'll see you then.